So this morning I have a message from Jesus, and it's about the whole area of healing ministry and evangelization. So here goes. My children, in times past, people focused a lot on morality and on fulfilling their duties when it came to church and prayer. God was seen as an angry, demanding God who expected a lot without offering much practical help. The result is there was little to no talk about healing ministry or inner healing, and people tried to please God largely by human strength and human willpower. Hearts became very hard, and sadly people became very judgmental and harsh on each other. My children, this is not how my church should be, for I am a gentle and merciful God who desires to help each and every one of you on your journey to holiness. I am a God who heals and who shares my power with you, and this is why my new church will be a church of both healing and of mission. My children, open your hearts wide to the healing gifts of the Holy Spirit and allow these gifts to work through you, both in the church and out in the world, as you bring my love out. Do not be afraid, but rather read the lives of the saints and read the Gospels, and allow yourselves to be made my new instruments of both love and healing. Well, what a beautiful message from Jesus. Maybe we'll start at the end. So Jesus is asking us to open our hearts wide to the loving gifts and charisms of the Holy Spirit so that we can bring love and healing to the world, also to the church, and that with this healing power of the Holy Spirit and these healing charisms, we can go out into the world and we can bring the church to the world, which is exactly what Jesus did when he was alive. It's exactly what the apostles did. Because at the time, obviously, there was no church. So they had to go out and they had to go to new countries. They had to go off to India and go off to all sorts of countries. And they had to preach and they had to teach and they had to heal. And it's through the preaching and teaching and healing that obviously people converted. As people converted, people gathered in numbers, and then the church was formed. And so in a way, Jesus is saying that that's what's happening now. But he starts off by saying that in times past, people focused, and Catholics especially, but maybe not just, focused a lot on morality and on fulfilling their duties when it came to church and prayer. So in other words, in times past, and I could say even I grew up in Ireland in a Catholic family, and it was like that as well in our family and in an awful lot of families, and pretty much all families I knew of. It was basically God was a very distant God. You said your prayers, you went to confession every now and again, you went to Mass on a Sunday, and you just kept God happy. And that was it, basically. And not only that, but then God was seen as an angry God. In other words, if you step out of line, if you do this, if you do that, mortal sin this, mortal sin that, danger here, danger there. In fact, it was like walking on a minefield, which is why, to be honest, that a lot of young people just decided to leave the church because they had already messed up anyway, so might as well just leave, would be the attitude. So God was seen as an angry, demanding God without offering much practical help. And what he means there is that there was no or little talk of healing ministry, inner healing, or even talk of God's grace. And it's true, when I had my conversion experience, for example, the thing that shocked me the most was that there was a Holy Spirit. That the Holy Spirit was real. It wasn't just some hocus pocus, Casper the Friendly Ghost type of thing. That the Holy Spirit was real, inner healing was real, and that God had his own healing ministry, which had nothing to do with psychiatrists and all that mumbo jumbo. That God had his own healing ministry of power, of love, of inner healing, of spirituality, and it was with the power of Jesus, the help of Jesus, that it was afterwards with that he was asking us to live a moral life, and it was with that he was asking us to love. And even at that, when we mess up, he was always there to understand and to forgive. And so he wasn't at all the angry, despot, nitpicking God that basically we had thought he was. So as a result, if, for example, people thought God was like that, which they did, well, obviously hearts were going to become very hard. People were going to become very, very judgmental and even harsh on one another. Because we're going to love your neighbour as yourself, but if you love yourself by being very, very hard on yourself and very severe on yourself and very strict on yourself, well, then you're going to apply also that to your neighbour. And if your neighbour isn't as harsh or isn't as whatever, then you're going to judge them and say, oh, look at him. So anyway, so my children, he says, this is not how my church should be, for I am a gentle and merciful God. And we can see that because When we spend time, for example, with Jesus in front of the Blessed Sacrament, and for any of us involved in healing ministry, we have experienced the love of Jesus, the proximity of Jesus, the understanding of Jesus, the gentleness of Jesus, the kindness of Jesus, the friendship of Jesus, the smile of Jesus, the joy of Jesus. He's full of absolutely unfathomable love and joy and positivity and happiness and understanding and compassion. And he wants each and every person to know that. He wants us all to be baptized. He wants us all to come to Mass and to go to adoration. Not just doing it, but out of heart. He wants us to experience it. He wants us to love each other. He wants us to experience his love. He's full of just the most wonderful love. And he goes on to say, I'm a God who heals and who shares my power with you. And this is why my new church will be a church of both healing and mission. In other words, Jesus is so generous that not only does he share his healing love with us, he also shares his power with us, his gifts with us, different charisms with us. He shares part, if you like, of his divinity with us so that we can be missionaries just like he was on earth. Like he literally wants to pour himself out on us and make us as Jesus-filled as possible. He just wants to give himself. And that's why he's saying then open your hearts wide to the healing gifts of the Holy Spirit and allow these gifts to work through you, both in the church and out in the world, so you can bring my love out. And that's the thing nowadays. Yes, we all know nowadays there are lots of people living lives that are, morally speaking, a million miles away from God. But God, it's not that he's not interested in that, but when he wants to touch hearts, it's not what he's looking at. You could have 5 tattoos, you could be married 5 times, you could be transgender 5 times over, you could have had 55 abortions, and who knows what, and yet Jesus sees that person as a soul who he loves and he wants to touch that heart. Jesus is not judgmental. Jesus is loving, Jesus is merciful, and Jesus has a plan for every single person, no matter what their life story, no matter what they're into. Jesus does not look at the sin, he looks at the person, he looks at the soul, and he wants to touch hearts, and he wants to use us to go out there. But in order to do that, we have to become a church of love, we have to become a church of power. We have to have the eyes of Jesus that see beyond human appearances. We have to have the eyes that see souls, that love souls and want to help. And we have to help our church to move forward, to become afterwards a hospital of love, a hospital of healing, rather than a sort of a prison camp where only people of a certain type can come in or whatever. And so our Jesus is just doing something fantastic, and obviously he's using his mother as well, and Our Lady is helping us. And so we have to stay humble, we have to stay focused on Jesus, and we also, from this message, we have to keep calling on the Holy Spirit as well to give us his love, the gifts and charisms as well of the Holy Spirit that we need for the mission, and also the inner healing that we need to be able to be even more filled with the love of Jesus and to be more filled with his strength, so we can go out there with love in our hearts, with joy, with smile, with enthusiasm, so that when people meet us, even the worst of sinners meet us, we talk to them, we love them, whatever, and hearts will be changed. So it's evangelization by love, by evangelization through our hearts, hearts of love, hearts on fire with the love of Jesus. So from London, from me, have a loving, wonderful, fantastic day, and go out there and hug some stranger, hug somebody covered in tattoos, hug someone with 100,000 earrings, hug someone like St. Francis who got off his horse and hugged the leper. You go out there today and you hug your leper.